Before I even say my name, I would like to say that I pronounce GIF. So my name is Paddy Johnson, and I founded Art of City, an organization that began 10 years ago as an art blog and is now a nonprofit that includes a publishing platform, the blog, Art of City, and a curatorial and event program that is concerned with exploring the political and social aspects of space online and off. What that translates to is a lot of work on how to keep artists in the city with affordable rents and things like that. I think anybody who lives in the city has probably experienced issues of gentrification, so we work very hard on that. And relevant to this conference, a lot of writing and curatorial work that is based in the understanding that the online world is a space in and of itself. And understanding that it is a space like any other space, that it has physical properties that define and shape our interactions with it helps us understand why things look the way they do. It shapes all the products that we see on the web, including animated GIFs. So one thing that we've known pretty much from the beginning is that the online space is informed by offline space and vice versa. And that's a pretty obvious observation to make. In fact, so obvious that I think sometimes we overlook some of the more sort of common connections that we might make. So anyway, as we start to talk about space and animated GIFs, and we'll get there, I promise, first, we really have to look at Star Trek. So this is amazing. This is Star Trek. It's 1990-something. Like, there is so much optimism about what you can do in space. And, like, at this time, it's not just Star Trek. There's Star Trek Voyager, there's Deep Space Nine, there's the X-Files. Like, if there is a space program about, like, outer space, it has made it onto TV, and most of it's terrible, but it's there, and we're all thinking about it. So anyway, so when we see Netscape Navigator, and it's 1994, and we see that icon, we know in the background that, like, also we're thinking about outer space. Like, all these TV shows are telling us about, you know, the prospects and the sort of democratic, beauty that lays out there for us if we're looking at Star Trek: The Next Generation in particular. And so it's not an accident that things look like this, that we have Netscape Navigator, which and a logo that represents a lot of those tenets. And we also see a lot of outer space GIFs and such. In any event, one of the questions that Anna asked us to think about when we put together our GIF presentations was what makes the GIF so attractive to the work that you do. And for me, that interest isn't just that it reflects the concerns of people who create and use and share it, but like a lot of the images that we share, but like a lot of the images that are made for the web, sharing and communicating an idea swiftly is why it exists in the first place. And this, to me, is a fundamental difference in the physical studio space of an artist. And, as someone who works as an art critic, that's something that concerns me very much. So when you're an artist, you start with a physical space, and and you invite people into that community, and who you invite into that community is very much at your control, right? Because when you bring somebody into your studio, you have to actually invite them. If somebody encounters your GIF on a Tumblr, like, you didn't necessarily seek them out. So the audience you get for your GIFs and for all online content is very different. And so anyway, so in that sense, I feel like the communities of art makers tend to come from a broader base of backgrounds, and that makes the medium really exciting to me. And also, one of the things you see is that, and you see this in pretty much every art form, is that there's a real relationship between what happens offline and online. And so that's, I think, what I was getting with the very first GIF, which is like the earliest, Netscape Navigator. We've got this outer space thing, so you can see that the things that people are concerned with, and they're real, like, quote unquote real lives, are things that like translate onto the web, and there's a very kind of fluid movement back and forth. In any event, I'm going to talk to you about two shows that I curated. The first is called Graphics Interchange Format, and I did that for Denison University under the hood of ArtFag City, which is now named ArtF City. When I curated this show, the show itself is a survey show of GIFs up to that point, which at that time was 2011. And I tried to just give a kind of cross-section of things that specifically artists were making online throughout that time, because the genre of art making GIFs tends to be a little different than the reactionary GIF or the trying to think. Well, I want to give three examples, but the reactionary GIF is the one that I remember, so we'll go with that for now. But so this the first image that I have on the screen, these are all screenshots, is the SimpleNet art diagram, and that was made by MTAA in 1997. And the reason that they made this GIF at that time was because when they told people that they worked online, usually their artist friends were very confused. They thought that what that meant was that they had a website and they were uploading their paintings to a website. And what they were doing at that time was that they were making online work that tried to engage people in communication in some way or another. And I always felt like this was a very relevant GIF for art making practice and the way that GIFs were and are used, in the sense that what happens is that people use them to communicate an idea as quickly as possible. When I asked MTAA whether this worked for them, because what they were doing here, it's like a manifesto, right? Like, there's two computers. They say their art happens in the middle. So their art is the communication. I asked them whether this cleared up things for people. The answer was no. So, they gave a talk at Creative Capital, which is a great artist resource and funding granting agency, and still they had a lot of problems explaining to people what they were doing. But this particular GIF was mounted. It was sent out, and with the appeal to other artists and anybody to remix it in any way they chose. So one of the things that's kind of exciting about this GIF from 1997 is how it's lived on, because there are countless artists who have remixed that GIF. This is not actually a remix of that GIF, but it is an example of of a GIF that we had in the show. This was by Stephanie Davidson, and she works a lot with found images, which particularly up through between 2008 and 2011 was, I think, a very dominant kind of approach to art making. So you would, use pre-existing images and alter them and collage them in some way, which isn't to say that means of working has gone away at all. In fact, it's very strong, but there are other means that people use too. So I think it's not maybe quite as present in the sort of consciousness. But this here is an install shot of the show. And then this is an animated GIF by Kevin Buersdorf. Now, Kevin, I think, works with the belief that the web banality is something that is so pervasive and so almost important that it should be worshipped. And so he put together all of the tiny GIF web memes that he could find and created this great mandala. And actually, I think one thing to mention about Kevin is that he really took this very seriously, so he spent a lot of time meditating. I think it drove him a little insane. He spent a lot of time in the woods for a while. He now lives in Far Rockaway and is making work there. But, this was a very dedicated practice and religion that he practiced. In any event, another install shot from here was, this is an install shot of Lorna Mill's work and Saul Chernick. Lorna is here. So now Saul... he uses Renaissance-inspired images. These are dancing skeletons with lutes. And one of the things that I really liked about this particular GIF, even he is not like... he's not somebody that I think would identify as a GIF artist exclusively, or somebody even for whom this is a main part of their practice, which is another thing that I think is quite common. But he used this. He was inspired by this particular image because at the time, these particular kinds of prints were woodblock prints, and they were the kind of thing that you could print out as many as you wanted, and they were all over homes. And so the kind of ease of production and distribution of those particular prints mirrored the way that an animated GIF works, and so that was part of his interest in creating this GIF. And then this is the way that we installed this. You can see here that there were two monitors, so they were supposed to sort of look like eyeballs, which I kind of liked. And you can see here that this piece is called Focal. These, basically, it's two shots where you're looking through like a sort of cheap plastic Mondrian painted cup. Was it?
Yeah,
oh no, really?
Yeah,
That's so funny. Because the way that I kind of thought about that was that it was like this cheap plastic glass, and that it was like this sort of, here's this image of this family that's that could be kind of precious in some way, and if you're looking at it through the lens of art, that might make it even more kind of important, but it's just a cheap reproduction. So the
lens of art part is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But not cheap. Okay. But anyway, so I kind of like that. This, to my mind, was really about like how we look at art and what lens, what kind of sort of art viewing helmet we put on when we decide we're going to look at a GIF or we're going to look at, whatever we're going to look at. Anyway, the other show that I am currently working on, but is not yet live, is called Geographically Indeterminate Fantasies. And this is a show that really takes some of the ideas of space that I mentioned earlier on and tries to work with them. So the idea here is that now, the last show that I showed you, I curated in 2011, and this I curated with Ria McNamara and Michael Anthony Farley. And the position we took here was that things have changed. There's a lot more software available, freely available, where you can render pretty much any space you might want. And so you can make these like really complicated GIFs, and that these GIFs, I think also similarly, it's, the ease at which you share an animated GIF has increased, like the connection speeds that we have increased, so we can make these like sort of, really large GIFs if we want to. They can be fully rendered environments. And all of this is sort of paired, I think, with, a kind of sense of frustration especially amongst some of the younger artists that I speak with, who maybe feel a little bit disenfranchised, at least in terms of like what their opportunities are in terms of like, can I buy space? The answer is no, for a lot of people. What publicly available space is there, like parks and those sorts of things? And like even our access to that seems to be diminishing. And so in that sense, you may feel like a little bit like some like less control, and you also feel like less precious over the things that you have, because a lot of them are kind of disposable, especially online. So, so anyway, one of the things that has resulted, I think, not necessarily because of that, but within this context, is a lot of animated GIFs that are fully rendered and kind of incredible. So this is Hugo Moreno. This is the web page. This is just a screenshot of something that is not live, so we can't share it, but we can talk about it. This is Electra.
That's my. Hi.
And so we have, there are hundreds of GIFs in this show, and I obviously can't go through them all. But we did try to include a number of different types of GIFs. So these are individual GIFs. Meanwhile, we also have GIFs that like are fully rendered environments, meaning they take over the entire screen. This particular work you can scroll through. But I just have the one slide here. And then this is Peter Burr's work.
How many frames are in
I have no idea. I just used a screen capture to do this, but I think that Peter's website has some special coding because we're currently working on special coding, whatever that means. I don't. It's somebody else's concern, but Anyway, so those are the things that I've worked on. And I guess the thing that I wanted to close on while we look at this particular GIF is one of the questions that Anna had asked us to consider was, what is the best thing that can happen to a GIF as a cultural form? And in my opinion, the best thing that could happen is that it will be written about, it will be archived, it will be, and it'll be preserved. And I think the worst thing is that none of that will happen, or it will be lost and forgotten.